Hello and welcome to another in my interview series, which is technically still unnamed, but it's been a while since I've done one, and I'm happy to be back with a very special guest today. We have Rodney Orpheus from the Cassandra Complex joining us. Welcome, Rodney. Golf clap. Um, we are going to talk a little bit about the upcoming release, Death and Sex, as well as the CD reissue, remastered version of the Plague album, and also talk about their upcoming world tour. And a little bit later, we're going to have a little bit of a listening party to the new album, Death and Sex, as well. So, hello, Rodney. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hello.
So I'm just going to start things out today with a little bit of an intro to the band, and then we're going to go into an interview segment, kind of about the history of the band and what has led up to this point. And then we're going to talk a bit more about the new album. So the Cassandra Complex, if you all are unaware, they came screaming out of Leeds, England, all the way back in 1984 with their signature sound of fuzzbox guitars, hammering synth lines, and drum machines, and the unique voice of Rodney Orpheus, who we have here today. Their debut singles March and Moscow, Idaho topped alternative charts all over the world, and they spent the next years touring the world and making more classic songs such as 1 Millionth Happy Customer, love that song title, and Nightfall, still standards on goth industrial dance floors to this day. The band took a hiatus for several years while band mastermind Orpheus worked creating some of the most widely used music technology today, as well as production work with other bands such as the Sisters of Mercy, Kraftwerk, Within Temptation, Sinead O'Connor, Decrepes, and many others. However, during COVID lockdown, Rodney Orpheus got together with original guitarist Andy Booth, plus German musicians Volker Zacharias and Axel Ermes. Using online collaboration tech, the four created The Plague, 10 brand new songs that prove that the Cassandra Complex are better than ever. Powerful, guitar-driven industrial rock songs like The Crown Lies Heavy on the King and Old Boys Network showed that the Cassandra Complex had lost none of their political fury and aggression. In the Dead Night and The Great Sea became modern Gothic standards, while more synth-powered ballads like Speed of Sound and The Best Thing prove that the band still know how to compose beautiful, emotionally deep songs that most of their contemporaries would kill for. Confirmed. The streaming version of the album came out in 2022 and spent 8 weeks at the top of the German alternative chart. Now, for the first time, it will become available on CD in a fully remastered version. And it will also be supported, this and Death and Sex as well, by a world tour upcoming across 12 countries, and I believe more as well now, throughout 2024.
I think we're
So
up to 16 countries now.
16 countries, yeah.
Something like that.
I was like, this tour just, it seems to be growing and growing, which is great. That's awesome. But we're going to talk about touring here in a few minutes. So that was The Plague, the album that was released, recorded during the pandemic and released in a couple years ago. But it will be reissued, remastered version on CD. And this will be coming out, I believe, around the same time you're going on tour as well. So those of you planning to attend those shows, you'll be able to pick one up on the road. And I'll post a link where you can find some more tour information in the chat as well. But first, let's scale it back here, a few decades, and let's take it back to the roots. There we go. So the Cassandra Complex, you're having your 40th anniversary tour. So do you want to tell us a little bit about the origins of the band? Where, when, why did you start? How did you form the band?
Well, I'm originally from Ireland. I'm not from England. I'm from Northern Ireland. But when I was growing up and got into music, I decided I would never be successful if I stayed in Ireland. So I moved to England, and a lot of people from Ireland moved to England to do whatever. And they usually go to London. But I was really into music from the north of England, from Leeds and Manchester and Liverpool. I mean, I love bands like Joy Division. I loved Echo and the Bunnymen, Teardrop Explodes, the Human League from Sheffield, Cabaret Voltaire were my favorite band. I mean, to
All
me,
classics.
all the really interesting bands of that period came from this area in the north of England. So I ended up in Leeds, and I was living in a house with a couple of other guys, and one day, when I moved into this house, one of the guys said, "Why did you move from Ireland to Leeds?" And I said, "Well, I want to form a band, but I don't really know anybody." And they said, "Well, that's no problem. You just go to the Faversham pub and you'll meet musicians there." And I'm like, "How do I know who's a musician?" They were like, "Everybody in that pub is a musician." And so I went to that pub, and sure enough, everybody was a musician. And that's how I got to know some people. And then one night I was at a nightclub thing, and it was a private party for some guy's birthday. I didn't know him, but I gave this party. And during the party, at one point, the DJ put on the first record by Die Krupps, which is very heavy German industrial, Wann Arbeit, Wann Alone. And I was like, wow, it's Die Krupps. And I got up on the dance floor and started dancing around. And there was one other guy dancing around, just two of us in the whole club. On the dance floor was empty apart from the two of us. And we were like looking at going, yeah, you like Die Krupps? Yeah, you know. So later on at night, I was at the end of the night, I was waiting in line to get my coat. And I happened to turn around, and this guy was standing behind me. And I said, "Oh, you were that guy dancing Die Krupps." I said, "Oh, my name's Rodney." He said, "My name's Paul, but how come you're at this party?" And I'm like, "I don't know, I gate crashed it." And he said, "Oh, it's my birthday party, actually." And so I'd gate crashed his party, and that's why the DJ was playing Die Krupps. And he was like, "Well, what are you doing in England?" I'm like, "Well, I want to start a band." And he said, "Oh, so do I. Why don't you come round to my house tomorrow? I've got a couple of synthesizers." And I'm like, "Okay, I'll bring a couple of synths over as well." And that's how I met Paul Dillon, and that's how the Cassandra Complex started.
And the rest was history.
The rest
Uh,
was history. And Andy Booth, the guitar player, he came to interview us for a fanzine he was doing. And we liked him so much, and he really got the music that the next day we called him up and said, "Do you happen to play guitar?" And he was like, "Yes, I do." And I'm like, "Do you want to join the Cassandra Complex?" And that's how he joined. So
nice. Gotta
that's how
love
we
the
started.
journalist recruitment. Cool.
Yep.
Uh,
Oh, I've got a cat looking to get in through the door.
oh, yes. We always welcome cat moments here.
No.
Feel free to
Come
tell us
again?
about your cat as well.
No, he's decided he doesn't want to come in.
My
There
audience
we
will
go.
love it, I'm sure.
Yeah.
The coalition of cat
Yeah.
people here.
You get crashing the interview, Monty. Hang on.
He was listening. He was listening in. It's like it's
Here we go.
my turn.
This is Monty.
My time to crash this party. Oh, hello, Monty. Yes, we always welcome the cat moments here. Oh, we even got a little squawk.
Yeah. Say hello to the audience, Monty.
Unfortunately, my cat is conked out behind the ring light, which
Right
hopefully she'll stay behind there because she likes to get in with the equipment and knock things over. But all right, thank you for showing us your cat. That's an important thing to introduce.
I think so too.
So can you tell us a little bit more about your intentions with starting the band? Like, what kind of shows were you trying to play? Kind of how did you get started once you assembled all the forces?
Well, musically, I mean, we had a really strong conception of what we wanted to do from the beginning. We wanted to have, we loved drum machines. We didn't want a drummer because they were always getting drunk and they were dumbasses. So we decided from the beginning it was going to be a drum machine because you know the difference between a drummer and a drum machine is that with a drum machine you only have to punch it once. Um, uh, so
Fair enough.
and and we loved like heavy sequencer driven music like DAF, for example. Deutsche Amerikanische Freundschaft was a big influence, and we loved Suicide was a huge influence on the vocals and the drum machine and the distorted keyboards that Martin Rev from Suicide had. And these were all big influences. And Hawkwood were a big influence, space rock band from the 70s.
Who I admittedly need to listen to. Yeah, I know all the other bands you're talking about because
and Cabaret Voltaire were a huge influence
big,
as well.
widely known influences for a lot of people in these genres.
Yeah, so we like distortion, and we also like bands that could be really wild and psychedelic, like Hawkwind could, or Cabaret Voltaire. So we wanted to have a combination of very rigid, machine-driven rhythmic end of things, plus really heavy guitars and distortion and wild vocals, improvisation on top. And we wanted video, which is always very important to us. And we wanted live shows to be live. We didn't want to just be like two guys just standing there playing synthesizers and looking boring. We wanted things to be exciting and really powerful. So that was the theory from the beginning, and it still kind of is that way, to be honest.
Well, now it's mostly just like a couple dudes standing in front of laptops, right? So
it's
not even the drum machines or whatever anymore. It's just in front of the screen.
Yes, exactly. And which, I mean, if it's Kraftwerk, that's awesome. If it's anyone else, it
has its time and place.
Yeah, but only if it's Kraftwerk.
Fair enough. And you've worked with Kraftwerk before, right?
I did do a little bit of work with Kraftwerk, yes. So because I was the very first person ever to use a virtual instrument, a soft synthesizer, live or anywhere at all, because which is a hell of a boast, but it's actually true, because I was working at Steinberg when Charlie Steinberg invented the VST instrument. So I was the first person who tried all the instruments for Charlie, and I was the first person to do a live show with a virtual synthesizer. And it happened to be that Kraftwerk came to that show and saw me do it and came to me afterwards and asked how I did it. And that's how I ended up working with Kraftwerk and building their laptop systems and all their soft synthesizers.
So let's also talk about some of the general themes of your music. What did you like to write songs about?
That's a great question. I mean, lyrics are really important to me, and I spend a lot of time and energy working my lyrics. And I do like songs that mean something. And way too many bands, I feel, write lyrics that are just bullshit. I mean, it's either just random things that sound impressive, or it's some string of cliches like "I love you, you love me, we're so happy," And I never wanted to do any of that. But at the same time, I think it was very important for me to write about a lot of different things, because the world is big. There's many, many things happening, and a lot of things interest me. So, yeah, I mean, I would write love songs because, like most people, I fall in love sometimes. Things happen, and that's both something that's personal and universal. And I like writing with things that are both personal to me and can be universal and connect to other people. So another thing we wrote about from the beginning was politics. We're very politically motivated. We're extremely left-wing by American standards, by almost anyone's standards. And there's a lot of injustice in the world that we want to write about that, and we still do. I also write that a lot of the lyrics are quite mystical or spiritual, because I'm a very spiritual kind of person, and religion is something that has been very important to the human race since civilization began. And a lot of people are searching for something more than themselves. And so, all of those things wrapped together are the sort of foundation of what we do. And like with the new album, Death and Sex, the idea of that was basically the two most basic things, the two things that life doesn't exist without, obviously. So, yeah, I mean, it can be, but one of the things when I write is I very rarely write something that's simple. A lot of my songs, the lyrics work on 2 or 3 different levels. So some songs that where the lyrics might sound very obvious may actually be referring to something else as well. I like to pack a lot of information into a small space. So sometimes it's like doing a crossword puzzle.
Cool. And we're going to talk a little bit more about the album Death and Sex, which is basically a reimagined version of the Sex and Death album, which came out in 1993. Features several songs from that album, re-envisioned, re-recorded, just freshened up in all sorts of ways. So we're going to talk about that in more depth a little bit later.
Okay.
And we're going to go through each track and do a little listening party. We've got some old footage also from the tour that happened in December 1993, I believe. And so we're going to talk about that in a bit. So how did you personally get into making music? Like, what were some of your first like pieces of gear? Like, I don't know. If you've thought about any of this for a while.
I can talk about gear for like the next 25 hours if you want.
Yeah.
I'll try and keep that. I'll try and cut that down. Well, how I got into music was that, I never thought that I could be a musician until one day I was in a record store. I think I was about 17. I was in a record store and I was looking through some records. I think I was going to buy David Bowie's Low album, in fact. And as I was coming back to the counter, the guy behind the counter put on a record and it came over the speakers in the record store. And it was like unbelievable. It was like something I'd never heard of before. And it was Oh Bondage Up Yours by X-Ray Specs, which was,
love that track.
It's a wonderful record. And Day the World Turned Dayglow, which is one of the greatest records ever made, in my opinion. And it was this like screeching female voice and these like buzzsaw guitars. And it was one of the very first punk records. And it just blew my mind. I'm like, holy shit, this sounds incredible. And it's so much energy and fire to it. And it was so simple.
Much badass sax too.
Yes, Laura Logic on sax. Yeah, she's great. And it was just fantastic. And I stood in the shop going, this is unbelievable. And it's so simple, but it's so effective. And so I started really getting interested in punk. And there was a fanzine came out around that period. And the front cover got reprinted a couple of times. And I saw it. And the front cover of the fanzine was just 3 guitar chords, like E, A, and D, the shapes of the guitar chords. And then it said underneath, now form a band. And I thought, wow, that's it. All you need to do is learn 3 chords of the guitar. You can form a band. So I went out and bought a guitar for $25 and I learned those 3 chords and I formed a band.
So that's like the true DIY punk like origin story.
Absolutely.
Like, I mean, I have a special like interest in this whole scene in the UK and the uprising of UK punk and the late 70s with this DIY ethos of like anyone can do it. So that's really cool.
And that's informed everything I've done since then. I mean, that's why I got into music technology, because I wanted to create technology that would allow anyone to do that without even needing a guitar. So, but yeah, that's how I got into music.
I think it's the Desperate Bicycles. They were like a UK like post-punk type band. It was their little catchphrase of like, it was easy, it's cheap, so go and do it.
You can do it. It's easy and it's cheap, go and do it.
Yeah, there we go.
It was easy, it was cheap, go and do it.
You know what I'm talking about.
Bicycles. Of course I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's like the mantra of DIY punk. But, all right.
How I made
X-Ray Specs.
Yeah, how I made my first record was that I bought a record from a band called Scritti Politti. Now, people might know Scritti Politti as like a sort of 80s, very polished, kind of beautiful 80s rock music. But actually, when they started, they were a little punk band who lived in a squat. And on the back of their first record, they listed everything they had done, how to make a record. They put it on the back sleeve of the 12-inch record, and they put down where they'd pressed, where they'd recorded it, how much they paid, and where they'd pressed it and how much they paid, and how they distributed it, and so on. And they listed all the steps of how to make a record. And then at the bottom it said information, please call this number. So I was like, okay. So I called the number, expecting to be put through to the record company. But instead it got put through, it was Green Gartside's home number, and he just put it on the back of the record. And so who's one of the greatest singers who's ever come out of the UK, by the way. And so I ended up spending an evening. He just spent the whole evening talking to me about how to make a record and what to do and how to market it and everything else. And I learned everything I needed to know from one phone call was Green Gartside directly to his home.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Security Polity, yeah, I'm definitely a big fan, and I actually really like their like smooth later '80s stuff too.
Mhm.
It's
Oh,
good, like new wave.
the drummer in that band, Fred Maher, is actually a really good friend of mine, and I ended up doing a record with him later. So,
Oh yeah, which record was that?
we did a remix of an LTJ Buckham track. It was like a drum and bass thing that Fred and I did. It was good.
Interesting. Okay, I'll have to check that out later. Um, okay, so we've gone into the true DIY origin story. Beans is now my cat has come over and she wants to knock things over. It's cat chaos already. But anyway, how
Mine's
would
decided to give
you
up and go to sleep, I hope.
how would you classify your band genre wise? This could be a big conversation. I know that we often use that goth slash industrial because a lot of
Hmm.
these genres they like intermix, and you can't.
Hmm.
I mean, I'm a firm believer that you shouldn't cleanly define music with like a single genre most of the time,
Hmm.
like
Hmm.
almost any of the time, because genres themselves are broken down into so many different influences and genres that made the genre. So you have
Hmm.
one genre, and it could be like any number of like genres that influenced
Hmm.
it. So it's just like big, continual, constant movement of influence that happens and
Right,
creates
absolutely.
different bands coming from
Hmm.
different genres
Right.
meshing together. So I'm not saying that you had to choose like one like
Oh,
genre
that
or
would be
like
impossible
classification.
anyway.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
I mean,
Really not encouraged.
when we started, um, well, I mean, like people were saying, well, you're one of the first goth bands, right? Well, that's kind of true, but when we started, goth didn't exist. Goth was a genre that came after we made records. So when the Sisters of Mercy and started at the same time, we knew each other in Leeds. When we started, we weren't trying to be goth because there was no trying to be. There was no goth to be try to be. That was something that was invented later to describe some of the things we were doing. When I started, I mean, we were, as I say, we were very influenced by punk, so we considered ourselves to be sort of punk, but we were electronic, so we called ourselves Electro Punk, and then we later called ourselves cyberpunk because it was a science fiction term, which we did long before Billy Idol ever co-opted the term. I may hasten to add. But we were also very influenced by industrial music. But when it was really, I mean, what most people these days they talk about industrial, they think of Nine Inch Nails or something, but that was like way beyond. I mean, we were influenced by Throbbing Gristle or Cabaret Voltaire. I think I still have an old issue of Industrial News back in my bookcase back there that's from 1976. And so the industrial bands then were Throbbing Gristle, Cabaret Voltaire, Clock DVA, Test
Basically
Department,
like really noisy experimental
SPK, yeah,
stuff.
really noisy
Yeah.
experimental, lots of metal
Like
bashing and
actual like industrial machines.
actual, exactly, right.
Yeah.
And we were very influenced by that as well. No, that's probably not obvious in our music now, but that was certainly an influence. In fact, we ended up doing a cover of Something Came Over Me by Throbbing Gristle, which is one of the very first industrial records that we covered.
Yeah, and I have that record, your cover, on a 12-inch single somewhere in
Yeah.
my collection. But so at the time, like in the 80s, were you calling yourself electro punk?
We were really calling ourselves anything because we never really felt that we never really wanted to be a genre in a genre. That was, and we still don't. I mean, I saw a review the other day. Someone said um, that that we were called an industrial band, but we were never really industrial. And I'm like, sure, yeah, we were. We were industrial just if we wanted to be, and we were gothic when we wanted to be, and we were punk when we wanted to be, and we were dance music when we wanted to be because we're complicated people and we like all We like all those. For me, there's only two kinds of music. There's good music and shit music, and I don't really care what genre it belongs to. It's either good or it's not.
So you might call this something like genre fluidity, if you will.
Genre fluid. I like that term. That's really good.
So you can just
Love it.
be what you want to be when you want to be
Yeah.
it.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
fine.
Absolutely. I mean, we've written great goth songs, we've written great industrial dance songs, we've written great EBM songs. You know, it's like, why shouldn't we?
Yeah, for sure. So
Genre
yeah, a lot of
fluid. I'm going to
people,
remember that.
they
I
want to
like that.
put bands in like very clean categories of like,
Mm.
this is a post-punk band, this is a goth rock band, this is an industrial band. Happens to me
Mhm.
frequently because I am also a highly multi-genre DJ. People are confused by my vibe all the time. They're like, "Are you goth?" I'm like, "I don't know. Do you think I am?" Um, I'd say probably yes, but I think it's important for people not to, live in these genre boxes and
Mhm.
to create what they want to create. And all of this movement leads to changes in music over time, and it basically creates the future sound with all this meshing of different styles. So,
Yeah, I mean, I think people used to, I mean, professionals used to tell us back in the day that we would never be successful because we didn't fit in any easily identifiable hole. And I think there's a certain element of truth to that. It was harder for people to go, that band can go on this festival because they sound like that. You know, it was harder for people to pigeonhole us. But on the other hand, I think it's also led to our longevity because by the very nature of impossible to pigeonhole, we're not like some bands who basically these days are just cabaret versions of themselves. You know, that they play the same songs in the same style that they played 40 years ago. We don't. We absolutely don't do that. We try and keep everything different and vibrant and feeling fresh. So I think it's a strength, but
so you mentioned Billy Idol's Cyberpunk album, which I have recently been introduced to, and
it's fucking terrible.
it's interesting.
No, interesting
but
is a diplomatic way to put it. Yeah. We
right,
did an album called
it's an
Cyberpunk 2 years
interpretation of
before Billy Idol.
Cyberpunk, definitely.
Yeah.
But it's like kind of how one would see cyberpunk as a theme, like on a very surface level. Like they watched Terminator movies and they were like,
Mhm.
okay, that's cyberpunk.
Right.
Uh,
Yes.
I mean, I'm not saying that's not cyberpunk, but obviously, I mean, especially when we're talking about the musical influences, there's a ton of
Mhm.
different dimension there
Absolutely.
beyond any one particular influence point. Like you can't say like even like Blade Runner or something that's very like quintessentially cyberpunk is defining the aesthetic or anything. So,
Right.
what?
Well, when we got into cyberpunk, we got into it through the literary side of things, through reading William Gibson and Bruce Sterling. You know, Bruce Sterling's Schismatrix novel was highly influential on
Yeah,
us.
and obviously
Uh,
science fiction is hugely
right.
influential to that entire vibe as well. I mean, you can see it throughout all elements of culture, really. I just
Mhm.
was mentioning films because that's what a
Right.
lot of people associate it, the visual
Right.
aesthetic
But
with.
I just want to point out that our interest in cyberpunk and our influence was a lot deeper than which Terminator or The Matrix or Blade Runner, all admittedly great movies, but that wasn't where we were coming from. We were coming from a far more interesting and deeper perspective, I think. Yeah. Well, Billy Idol was just coming from bad Hollywood remakes.
So do you feel like Billy Idol like heard your like album and was basically like cyberpunk? Yeah, that's a vibe. And
I don't know what was I can't speak for Billy Idol,
true,
so
we don't know what he was thinking at the time.
don't know what he was thinking. Though he did,
Would you
though
say
he
that it
did,
was
though
popular
he
at the
did try
time?
to hire a bass player to remix one of his records, but our bass player didn't know who he was and turned him down.
Um, it is. Would you say that at the time that you created that album, there was a lot of that influence in music? I mean, because this is still kind of like, well, EBM has kind of been around for a few years. You had,
Mm,
the early 80s sort of like minimal synth EBM bands, like
mhm,
Absolute Body Control and whatnot,
mhm,
who, and then it sort of developed into like the Front 242, like more like danceable, like
mhm.
faster style towards the late 80s. Um, but would you say this was still kind of like a fringe sound?
I think so. I mean, we were on the same record label as Front 242 and bands like Agrum and Click Click, and so a lot of the early EBM records were happening. Well, so yeah, I mean, the EBM became famous through the PS. This is Electronic Body Music compilation, which we were on. So and that One Million Type of Customer was on that record and became
Founder
like a huge.
status.
Yeah, it became yeah, we had founder status, and that became a huge hit uh, off the back of that record. So we were very much involved in that very early EBM scene. And I'm a huge Front 242 fan. They're a wonderful band. In fact, the last time we toured America, we toured with Front 242, and that was a fantastic tour.
When was that?
And that was like 20 years ago or something.
Okay, so a while ago. Yeah, someone in
It
my
was a while
YouTube
ago.
comments actually commented that they saw you on that tour.
That was a great. I mean, that was a
I
great
imagine
double
some people
bill.
watching
The Cassandra
were
Complex and
there.
Front 242 on the same bill is a damn good night out. Um,
Goals, definitely. Um, so, okay. Which of your albums do you think is your favorite? Like, what was the favorite one that
oh God.
you liked making the most, or the outcome was the best to you? Um, yeah.
That
Which album is
that's
your
like
favorite?
that's like asking a parent which is their favorite child. I mean,
Okay.
well, some
Um,
parents do have favorite children, I guess,
which
but
ones are your favorite? You can pick more than one then.
well, I mean,
Or if you hate the question, you don't have to answer.
the question of which one did you enjoy making most is an interesting one because I love making records, but I hate making records in the sense that I'm such a perfectionist that I mean, when we made Theomania, which is considered to be one of our classic albums, like most people would say that's our best album, I think. I'm not sure if I would agree, but yeah, absolutely, it's a great album. But the stress of making that broke the band up because it was hell in the studio. Absolutely, we were arguing all the time, but we made a great record out of it because there was such a strong creative tension. Um, and it was the same when I made The War Against Sleep. I mean, I was crying in the studio every night. I would come home crying after recording it because it was so emotionally intense. I would come home and just sit there for 20 minutes and cry my eyes out because it was really, really emotional. But it's got some of the best songs we've ever written on it. And so I love making, as I say, I love making records, but it's so emotionally intense that I don't know whether I enjoy it or not. It's a really difficult question. That's a really difficult question to answer.
Okay.
Um, but I also do really enjoy make having this thing come out that's like something can't it's in my head and in my heart, and then it's here. It's this thing that I can give to people, and they can take it and listen to it and feel what I was feeling and think what I was thinking. And that's incredible. That's absolutely that never fails to blow my mind. That it's so when someone comes and says, I listened to this song and it made me feel it's really meant so much to me, that never fails to really affect me. So I love the product. But I also hate the product because it's never quite as good as it could be because I'm such a perfectionist. So it's a complicated process.
Sure, sure. So you said there was a lot of creative tension on that album, and sorry, did you say that it basically broke the band up? I was
On Theomania, yeah, the band broke up after Theomania. Well, in the middle, when yeah, but near to the end, I had to finish the last couple of songs. I had to finish on my own because the band broke up before the record was even finished. It was so difficult. Um,
and
but
what year was that?
and it was that was 89,
Oh, okay.
maybe. Um,
So
88,
did you
88,
you
1988,
reformed
yeah.
with a different lineup then at that point?
Yeah, the lineup has been flexible all the way through. Um, but I think, but now we don't have we don't have those problems because we've gotten older. We've learned to deal with it. You know, we learned to deal with that kind of level of stress. And we because when we were making those very early records, we were young, we were kids, we didn't know what the hell we were doing. And we didn't have the wisdom or the mental resilience to really fully comprehend what we were going through. And it was just massive stress. I mean, it was wonderful. I mean, we were touring, we were doing like 200 shows a year, maybe, and making records. And just all we did was tour, make records, tour, make records. And it was fantastic. It's a wonderful thing when you're a young person to travel the world and have people scream your name. It's great, but it's also highly disturbing to your mental health. And we had no way of really understanding what we were going through. So that was that. So that could be difficult. Now we've got the original lineup back together again, and we're all really, really close friends because we realized that what we had back then was something special, and who we are and the connection we have together is really important and really special. So we'll argue as well, but we argue with smiles on our faces because we know that what we're doing is creating something wonderful, and that's much more important than any of the bullshit things that from day to day. So
Yeah, and do you want to talk about the current lineup of the band? You have a couple of the
mhm.
original members in there.
Yeah, I mean, Paul Dillon and Andy Booth, who formed the band with me, are back in the lineup, and that's the lineup we wanted to do with this anniversary tour. The reason we're doing the anniversary tour is that Paul and Andy and I all got back together, and I mean, we've been playing together off and on for years. I mean, Andy's been playing in the band for the last 25 years. I mean, he left for a few years and then came back and has played on nearly everything and played live with us. So the three of us have been playing live off and on over the last few years. But for this, we were like, we really need to play some really good club shows together. And we just did a few festivals in the last years. But we wanted to be able to, and when you do festivals, it's wonderful. You've got so many people there, but you've only got maybe 45 minutes to play. And we have an enormous back catalog. And we wanted a chance to play some of the songs that we don't normally get to play at festivals. So we thought, let's do a club tour. And then we thought, well, we've been doing this for 40 years. Let's do a 40th anniversary thing, revisit the catalog, revisit who we are, and be the original lineup back together again.
Yeah, I can't say that many bands achieve the 40th anniversary tour status. So that's definitely a feat, a rare feat. And
Especially
for a
with an
band
original
to
lineup.
still sound good and,
Hmm.
be
Yeah, I
something
mean,
that you want to go see as well. That
yeah, absolutely. Well, that was important to us because, from we hadn't done a record for a long time, the plague. And when we got back together again in the pandemic, we were like, well, shall we just re-record some of the old songs or remaster old songs? And we decided that was very important to us that we did a new album that was all new original songs because we thought if we're coming back again into people's consciousness, we don't want people to think that we're just another cabaret band, that we're just a legacy. We want to make a new album that's going to be really brilliant and it's going to be really exciting and show people that we're still energetic and we're still intelligent and creative in what we do. And that's why we did The Plague. And it's some of the best songs we've ever written, I think. And pandemic gave us the opportunity because there was nothing else for us to do basically, except sit at home and work on the record. So we got the time to really make it right. So.
Yeah, definitely. So scaling back a little bit between
Mhm.
like the early 90s and the plague.
Mhm.
So you went on hiatus when about?
I think it was I want to say 97 or something. We did an album, we did Wetware in 2000. But so basically 2000 was when we stopped, basically. Um, uh, there were various reasons for that. I mean, one was, I mean, after we did while we were doing Sex and Death, which was 97, 93, as you say, 93. I was already getting burnt out by then because, we'd been on tour for 10 years, effectively, doing, as I say, 100, 200 shows a year. We toured everywhere solidly, and making records and producing records. And I was getting really burned out. So I took a step back from the band a bit then and started working in music tech, because I was getting continually frustrated with the technology we had wasn't working right. So I thought, screw it, I'll go and help make it work the way we wanted. And then we did Wetware in 2000, and we did some shows around then, and we did the tour with Front 242. But after that, there was no records for 20 years, basically. Because, well, I mean, the thing is, it's like because streaming started, basically, digital started, and there were a couple of problems, sort of financial issues, because before that, we were selling 30,000, 40,000 CDs of every record, which is, anyone who's making a record these days are probably gasping at the notion that we could sell 30,000 or 40,000 records of each record.
Yeah, I'd say for anything that's not like pop music, that's
yeah. I mean, if you sell 30,000 CDs today, you're in the top 10 of the Billboard Top 100. No question. Back then, that just got us in the alternative charts. But if you sell 30,000 records, and we were doing a lot of this on our own, we had our own studio, we had no overheads. So we were making a very comfortable living. And that's what we lived off, just making music. And we were making a pretty decent living on our music and playing shows. And then streaming came along, and MP3 piracy, if everyone remembers that. And then it was like, boom, CDs just collapsed, sales collapsed.
Yeah, the early 2000s Napster age.
Exactly. And that was my wages gone. And I had we had lighting engineers, videographers, we had live sound guys. I was supporting a whole small industry on tour all the time. We had like 14 people on tour. And there was just no more money. So we had to just stop, basically, because we wanted to eat and pay the rent. And so life caught up with us. So we got corporate jobs, and which and did quite well out of that too. But
and it sounds like you went more into the music technology sector at that point, and we're working on creating the VST technology that many musicians are using today.
Yes, yeah. I mean, one of the things that we learned from Scritti Politti, from that famous phone call, was that Green said, just do everything yourself. Don't bother with a manager. Don't bother with everything. Just, because when you're a professional artist, you're paying percentages to everyone, the record company, the publishing company, the manager, the tour agent, blah, 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 blah. You're getting nickel and dime continually sliced down, and you get paid last. So out of every $100 you make, you're lucky if you're earning $10 or $5. Everybody else is earning it before you do. So one of the first things we did was become a cottage industry, and we handled everything ourselves. So Andy handled all the business and the contracts, and he ended up doing a law degree because he got tired of getting shafted on contracts. So he ended up becoming a lawyer, and now he's a very successful music business lawyer. And Paul handled a lot of the marketing and advertising, and he ended up running a poster company. And Volker, same thing, worked in a publishing company. Axel, who played keyboards and did all our live stuff, he ended up becoming a live sound engineer. And he was the sound engineer for Volsheim, And One, VNV Nation, you name it. So we all ended up working working in the industry. Invisibly in the background, we've got our fingers in many different pies, and I was interested in the production technology, so I ended up working in the studio and doing production, and ended up helping design technology. So that's how we did it.
And do you want to talk a little bit about your own technical setup? I know you said this conversation could go like on its own just for like an entire day straight
Okay.
with the
So
gear
yeah,
talk. But what is
for
some
the
of your
mu
most essential gear in your
okay,
setup?
so for the muso people out there, we record everything in PreSonus Studio One, which is a wonderful digital audio workstation. In my opinion, the best by a long way. I may be slightly biased because PreSonus and helped in building that. But Studio One is a great product, and it's designed very much for our kind of music, and I know because it's my kind of music. So everything is recorded in that. I have some very nice, here you go. I have some very nice ESI speakers. This is a German company called ESI Audio. They make some very nice and very good value speakers. I have those in a big subwoofer under the desk. And I have, whoops, now I'm moving the camera around and ruining your OBS setup. Um, and down a little bit. Yeah, sorry about that. There we go. How about that? Is that better? Um, and I've got ESI interfaces as well. What else have I got here? Oh, Waldorf synthesizers. We use a lot of Waldorf synthesizers, like my Waldorf Blofeld right there on the desk. Wonderful synthesizer. And I have a Waldorf Pulse here as well. So yeah, a lot of Waldorf stuff. And yeah, and a lot of plugins, a lot of plugins. Some which are very expensive, some which are actually free. So because there's so many great plugins available these days. So yeah, everything's recorded in the computer.
Yeah, we always have a lot of questions about this sort of stuff from the audience, since a lot of the people who are interested also
Hmm.
make their own music.
Sure.
So, yeah, I always like to ask people if they have any advice for budding producers on how to get started.
Do I have any advice? Don't do it. Get a real job.
Well, that's one take. All right. Fair enough. What about if they have a real
No,
job
I'm
and
serious.
they still
I'm
want to
absolutely
get
serious.
started?
I'm serious. If I was a teenager today wanting to get into the music business, I wouldn't get into the music business. Um, Learn to code, or
Do
become a
something
games programmer.
practical.
Do something useful with your life.
That's
Do
reasonable
some
advice.
do something that will pay the rent.
I mean the scene is very very sort of like overly diluted at this point. Like there's so many people who want to do it, so it's just like
And
there's infinite
okay,
tracks out there that no one will ever listen to. You know.
when I first started working, I my first music tech job was at Steinberg, because I was using Steinberg's Cubase, which is a wonderful piece of software, and I lived in Hamburg, which is where Steinberg was based. And so one day I was talking to Mark Chung from Einstürzen and Neubauten, and Mark said, "Hey, do you use Steinberg software?" And I said, "Yeah, I do." And he said, "Well, the office is just down the street. Shall we go visit them?" And I was like, "Okay." So he introduced me to the Steinberg people, and one of the developers there was a fan of the Cassandra Complex. And he said, "Do you want our latest software? Here, have a beta version of this new software." So I started testing their software for them, and I started testing the first audio. And then one day I was in there, and they said, "We're going to show you something secret we just invented, and we call it Virtual Studio Technology." And I looked at this, and it was the very, very first early version, alpha version of VST, Virtual Studios, the very first software recording system. That was all in software. And it just blew my mind. I was like, this is going to change. And so I went to the boss of the company and knocked on his door, and I said, "I just saw your VST." And he said, "What do you think?" I said, "I think it's going to change the world. It's going to change everything." And he was like, "Well, that's great. Is there anything else I can do for you?" And I said, "Yeah, you're going to need to get someone who can explain this to everybody else and show them how it works, and work with musicians and make it famous." And he was like, "Yeah, do you know anyone?" I said, "Yeah, me, hire me." And that's how I got into the business. And so for the next many years, I traveled the whole world just showing VST to people and explaining it and designing it. And then I ended up lecturing in college about it. Um, so yeah, so that's kind of what I did for a long time. So yeah, if you want to know about music tech, I am definitely your guy. And I ended up being the editor of one of the editors in Computer Music magazine and being a college lecturer in music tech.
Nice. So it sounds like you had a varied history doing a lot of things within music,
Mhm.
a lot of behind the scenes work. And let's see, what would you, how would you describe your own songwriting process?
I have no clue. I don't know how I write a song. I honestly do not know how I write a song. Um, one day it's an idea, and the next day it's a song, and something happened in between, but I have no idea what happens.
Was it magic?
It's oh, I mean, it is a magical thing. It is really a genuinely a magical thing, and I don't really quite comprehend it. But I guess practically it can come in lots of different ways. I mean, we're a band, we work together as I write the lyrics, but we write the music together as a group. But sometimes there's some songs that come from one or come from one of the band members originally or the other band. Sometimes it's just me sitting here at 2 o'clock in the morning with my keyboard in front of me, just going playing around and thinking, and I'll make a little tune and I'll start singing into the microphone, and then it starts to be a song. And then the other guys in the band, we have everything. We work collaboratively. I mean, because we all live in different countries. I live in Los Angeles. Paul and Andy live in Manchester. Um, and so we have everything collaboratively. So every time I write something, it comes up in their systems as well, and vice versa. Or Andy may, I mean, like on the Plague, a couple of songs, Andy wrote them literally sitting on his couch with a copy of GarageBand on his iPad, and he would put little bits together on his iPad and then just play his guitar into it, and that's how it would start. He would send me the stems from the iPad, and then I'd take them and usually replace them all with better sounds or whatever. But that was how they would begin. So yeah, a lot of the songs like Speed of Sound started like Speed of Sound was a lyric that I wrote at 6 in the morning while I was visiting Andy in Manchester. And I wrote that and I came downstairs the next morning and I said, I've written this song. He said, so have I. I've got this song. And he had the music written on his iPad without ever hearing the lyrics. And we both wrote it simultaneously without knowing what the other one was. It was quite telepathic. Um, and it's one of our best songs. So
So the process is basically telepathy, a little splash of magic,
hmm
some gear thrown in.
yeah, yeah, pretty much. Yeah, that's pretty much the size of it. Yeah.
So would you say that you are now fairly invested in making music again? Now that you've made this
hmm
new record a few years ago, The Plague, um, would you say that you're going to be planning on making more albums now?
Yeah, for sure. We've got like a schedule. I mean, we have a I we I have a cloud-based project management system with everything in it, and we have every pretty much every day for the next year mapped out already, with concerts and records and everything else. So it's yes, absolutely. I'm very much invested in doing this. So the plan is, I mean, The Plague and Death and Sex are coming out in on March 8th. I'm probably I just started today on thinking about remastering another one of our old records. We have a bunch of other things on the slate to record. I've got about, I think I've got about 20 songs half finished right now, or quarter finished or whatever.
Brand new songs?
And I'm not going any further than that. Actually,
Okay.
if I count them all up, it's probably more like 30, actually. There's 30 songs in various stages of being finished. Um, and while we're rehearsing for the tour and in between the shows, we're going to be recording those. Um, and then we've got tours like we have we're doing, well, we can come to that if you want. So,
Yeah,
but
you can
yes,
talk about the
lots of
tour
records.
now.
Okay. So yes, we have lots of lots of recordings planned over the next year. On the tour front, we've got in March, we've got the UK, Belgium, Holland, Germany, and Denmark in March. That's a pretty heavy schedule. And then we've got April off to record. And then in May, we go back on the road again, and we have Gothic Treffen in Germany and Leipzig, which is always a complete blast. I mean, we played that festival at least 3 times before, I think. And it's always amazing. We're playing in a venue called House Leipzig, which is where we always play there, and we're headlining that. The last time, so if anyone's going to with Gothic Treffen and you want to see us, we're on, I think it's Sunday night on House Leipzig, and we're headlining that. But if you want to come, get there early, because the last 2 times we played it, we sold it out completely. And there were I think the last time we played it, there were 100 people outside who couldn't get in, and it's an 800 capacity venue, I think. So if
Like
you're
a
coming to
Taylor Swift show for Gus.
I would, hey, nothing wrong with TT. She's fine by me. Um, uh, she's a fine, fine person. God love her. So yeah, we have got Treffen, and then we're doing, I think, Munich, Prague, which is going to be great. Vienna and Frankfurt, I think, on that part. And then in August, we're playing Miralund Festival in Germany, which is near Hanover. Great festival. We're probably playing, I think we're playing on the Saturday in Miraluna. Maybe it's a Sunday, I can't remember. And then 2 weeks after that, we've just got the contracts through for W Festival in Belgium, which is in Ostend on the beach, which is an amazing festival. And that's great because Girls Under Glass are going to be playing there, who are really close friends. I mean, Volker and Axel, who played on The Plague and who played with the Cassandra Complex for many years, that's their other band, or their own band, is Girls Under Glass. So we're actually both playing on the same stage right after each other. That's going to be really fun. And also there's some really incredible bands playing at the big stage. There, Ace of Base are playing, Jenny from Ace of Base. And
Who aren't they like kind of questionable?
oh yeah, they're definitely questionable.
Yeah, okay.
They're definitely questionable. I think one of Ace of Bases was outed as a white supremacist or something.
Yeah,
But
something
anyway,
along those lines.
something along those lines. I want to be careful exactly how I say that. There was some controversy, shall we say? Yes.
Right.
Uh, but yeah, that's an amazing festival because there's a big stage which is like 80s, classic 80s pop bands, and then there's what they call the Batcave stage, which is a bunch of weirdo goth industrial people. I think Vomito Negro are playing, Girls in the Glass, us. I can't remember who else is playing. Suicide Commando, and so it's going to be a fun festival. So that's in August, and then in September we play the USA. I can't say exactly where yet because it hasn't been announced, but that will be announced at the beginning of March, hopefully. So we're doing the USA end of September, beginning of October, and then we go to Latin America, and we're looking at Mexico, Colombia, Costa Rica, Brazil. And then after that, it looks like in late November or December, we're back in Europe again. But I can't go into that too much. That's still being put together. But
Right. So it sounds like you're traveling like, pretty wide and far this year, in little
yeah,
segments of the tour.
yeah,
And it's been
yeah.
a while since you've done any sort of tour that expansive, right?
It's been 20 years since we did any kind of real. I mean, no, it's actually no. We did a short European club tour about 15 years ago, maybe. I think I can't remember exactly. But yeah, it's been a while. It's been over a decade, certainly.
Well, I'm sure that will be great. I'm going to post some links here in the chat in the comments. So if you are in any of those places, you can check out those dates and go see the Cassandra Complex live.
Yes, please. We need your money.
There we go. From the source.
And we'll have lots of merchandising to sell. Bring extra money. bring lots of money.
Yeah, so you have the new CD remaster of The Plague, and that's coming out. Um, the Death and Sex album, is that coming out just on CD and
CD
digitally?
on streaming.
Right.
Yeah. We were hoping to get vinyl. That was one of the main reasons for doing it. We wanted to do a vinyl version. But the vinyl pressing plants are absolutely backed up. There's like 3 or 4 months waiting time to press vinyl, so we just can't get it in time for the tour. We may try and press some for the summer. We'll see. It's Taylor Swift's fault. They're all pressing all her records instead.
Yeah, there'll be like one big pop artist who will just like dominate all the plants for so many weeks.
That's how it works. Yeah. Because back in the day, 20 years ago, when streaming and CDs were big, all the pressing plants scrapped their machines because no one wanted vinyl anymore, and all the cutting layers were all mothballed. So that there was almost no technology left to actually make vinyl.
Yeah, yeah. And there's been kind of like an ebb and flow of the vinyl resurgence as well. Like there was a time when it got really, really big, and everyone, was just collecting vinyl. Just not even necessarily because they were going to play it, like listen to it, but just to have this like nice physical artifact of the music.
Yeah, it's an artifact.
So
I can understand that.
Of it.
Yeah, I mean, we've thought about doing vinyl and doing like hand painted covers and things like that, just to make them even more of an artifact. So we're still trying to figure out what's the best way of doing it. We never like to make something that's just boring. We like everything we do. We like to make, no matter what it is, whether it's a concert or a record or whatever, we like to make it very unique and very exciting, and an experience that someone can have and treasure. I think that's really important.
Okay, so it sounds like a lot of what you have planned for 2024 is touring and a lot of, releasing of these new albums. We're going to listen to Death and Sex. It's the reverse order now, which is basically the reimagined, re-recorded version of the 1993 classic Sex and Death. So in case people are confused, like, why is that almost the same? It's because it is,
almost the same.
Almost the same. It's
a lot of the same songs, but very different versions.
Right. Deserves its own kind of separate title and its own individual release, right? Because it's different. It's different, but the same. We're going to hear in a few minutes, we're going to have a special sneak preview of the album. It's not out until March 8th on Cop International Records. I believe are based in Oakland, California. West Coast is truly representing today. It's rare that we can represent in these genres. I know you're not from here, but anyway.
I'm here.
You're here now.
In Los Angeles right now.
One of us. So you have a lot of this tour stuff planning. Do you want to talk a little bit about some other stuff that you do? I know that you've written a couple books and that you're kind of an expert on like occult, witchy magic stuff. Do you have anything coming out on like the book writing end of things soon?
Yep, and there's also a book coming out this year. My third book will come out. I wrote 2 books on Aleister Crowley and Aleister Crowley's magic, both of which were very successful. I'm happy to add, which is really nice. People really like them. But when I was very young, when I was first in Leeds, I met a guy called Phil Hine, who's also a very accomplished occult writer. If anyone's interested in occult books, so you've probably heard of Phil Hine's books, Condensed Chaos and Prime Chaos and so on. He's written a lot of really good stuff. But Phil and I knew each other when we were very young, and we used to edit a magazine called Pagan News, which was a monthly magazine that came out every year during the 80s, every month during the 80s. And back then there was a thing called the Satanic Panic, which most people today have never heard of, but many people who were interested in the occult got arrested and got their children taken from them because they were supposedly satanic ritual abusers and blah blah blah, which was of course complete bullshit. So when we wrote Pagan News, we reported on all these things. We were the only people who were reporting on the Satanic Panic from an occultist perspective, from a perspective that was against it. All of the major media outlets supported this Satanic Panic insanity.
And so, wait,
And
have you been involved with Pagan News for a while then?
Phil Hine and I founded it.
Oh, right,
Uh,
right. Okay.
yeah, founder again. Um, and we were the first people to come up with a theory that the reason why so many priests were going on about satanic ritual abuse was because they were the abusers and they were trying to throw the guilt onto someone else, which later proved to be absolutely true.
Yeah, I mean, when you
Uh,
look at the Catholic Church, I mean, that
yeah,
speaks for itself.
we were pretty much the first people to expose that. And so and also we featured a lot of interesting writing from very well known occultists or people who were at that point not well known but are now. So anyway, now we've done a book called Delinquent Elementals, which is all the collected magazines of pagan news in one book, or all the best articles, the sort of cream of the crop, but also with loads of footnotes published back then. So we've about a third of the book is just new notes, looking at the people and the personalities and the things that went on back then, but looking at it from a historical perspective. And it's a really interesting book. It's also really fucking funny. I had a great time writing the footnotes because there was a lot of things we couldn't say about various Christian personalities back then because of libel laws. We didn't want to get sued. But a lot of those guys are now dead, and you can't libel the dead. You can say what you like. You can actually tell people the real story that was going on that we couldn't print before. And also historically, a lot of these people who were complaining about it ended up being outed as abusers, and so on. So we've got lots of really nice illustrations and cartoons and all sorts of stuff in it. So it's an incredibly funny book. It's a huge book. I think it's like 400 pages or something, and that's
Oh
coming
wow,
out.
that is a
It's
lot
a
of content there.
big book. Um, but it's really interesting if you're interested in modern occultism and the modern occulture, if you
How
like.
often did Pagan News run? And like, was it normally kind of like a magazine
It
style
was a
or?
very small newspaper magazine style, but we put it out every month for several years. And we were also one of the first people to really support LGBTQ issues and paganism, because back then that was still like a big no-no for a lot of people. Um, and a lot of what's modern day culture we featured right at the beginning there. So it's really interesting from a historical perspective if you're interested in the sort of cultural influence of modern day paganism over the last few decades. And it's also really interesting historical document because of the Satanic Panic stuff. And it's also just highly, highly entertaining. I hope. I certainly, as I say, I was laughing my butt off all the way through writing it. And that's coming out, and we hope it's in June if it all goes well. But because there's so much in it and there's so many illustrations, it's taking a long time to get it exactly the way we want. But that's coming out on a really awesome English publishing company called Strange Attractor. But it's coming out
Sorry,
in
could you
the
repeat the publisher? You cut up every second. Oh,
Strange
okay.
Attractor
Yeah,
Press.
and I'll
Who
leave
do
a link to the book also in comments
Yeah,
and everything here.
yeah. But it will be available in the US through MIT Press. Wow. And Penguin. It's going to be available through MIT Press and Penguin. I'm a real author now.
Mainstream.
Yeah, I know. It's how wild is that? So yeah, it's yeah,
That's great to see something that's, I mean, obviously culture has changed a lot over the last like 40 years or whatever, but
mhm.
it's still good to see that it's being accepted by a big publisher. Um, but
Yeah. I mean, especially when it started with Phil and I were these just two poor punks living in the back streets of Leeds, with a cheap Atari ST computer and a secondhand laser printer. And we were one of the first, we actually won an award for being the best small press publication at that time. But we did it on a shoestring budget. And now it's on MIT Press and Penguin Random House. So go figure.
In America, even where religion is still like a very like firmly embedded part of the culture. So, I mean, that this is a
Christian religion,
whole
yes.
other, you know, yeah,
Mm.
exactly. Christianity is still like sort of like, I mean, even more so now. Like
Yeah.
it's
But
getting
a weird,
separation of
but
church and state is like
a
not.
strangely warped fictional version of Christianity that bears no relationship to what's actually in the Bible.
Yeah, and if we're talking about politics and everything, the separation of church and state is basically dissipating the last several years here. So
Yeah.
it's an interesting time to be in America.
As I pointed out on my Facebook page earlier, the Leviticus chapter 19, verse 33 and 34 says, "Thou shalt treat the stranger who immigrates to your country as if he was your own. And thou must treat these because I am the Lord your God." So the Bible specifically says that if you're a Christian, you should treat immigrants as being natives. So tell that to your right-wing Christian Trumpist friends.
Big grimace. Um, yeah. Oh, you have an album called Hello America. I was actually meaning to ask you about that earlier.
Yes.
Was that inspired by touring in America?
No, it's actually inspired by two things. Because when we did our first singles, they were released we did them in the UK, and then they got exported to Europe, and a few found their way to the US, but we didn't really have a US release. And then later, a year or two later, we were signed to a small label called Ruska Records, and they opened a US subsidiary. And so they said, "We want you to do a compilation album of the early records so we can release it in America." So we were trying to figure out what to call it. And one of my favorite authors is a science fiction author called J.G. Ballard. So if you're into industrial subculture, J.G. Ballard is the guy. He wrote a book called The Atrocity Exhibition, which is what the Joy Division song is named after. And he wrote a book called Crash, which became a movie. I think people have seen the movie Crash, which is about car crash victims who get sexually turned on by car crashes. And he wrote a book called Empire of the Sun. Steven Spielberg into a movie, which was his autobiography, because he was brought up in a concentration camp. Anyways, J.G. Ballard also wrote a book called Hello America. And so we figured that was a great title for our record, our first American record. So we named it after J.G. Ballard's Hello America.
Yeah, I thought it was funny that one of your first singles was called Moscow, Idaho, which is, I mean, I was like, how is this like UK band? Like, why is Moscow, Idaho even on their radar?
Somebody from Moscow, Idaho actually wrote to me about that just the other day. I'll tell you why that's on my radar, because one day I was listening to the radio in the UK. I was in the kitchen cooking. It was a Saturday afternoon. I still remember it like it was yesterday. And they were interviewing Exene Chervenka from the band X, you know, the so-called punk band from Los Angeles. And they were like nothing at all to do with anything to do with punk. Fuck off. And
shade thrown.
She was being interviewed, and they were like, "So, you know, what's it been like? You've been touring." And I says, "Yeah, we've been touring all over. We're playing all these little shithole towns, places like Moscow, Idaho, that like Midwest. We'd much rather be back in Los Angeles, because everybody's who's important from Los Angeles." And I listened and I thought, this is like the most unpunk thing I've ever fucking heard in my life, So I sat down and wrote Moscow, Idaho as a rebuttal to Exene Chervenka. And that's why it says.
I'm glad I asked about that. That's a good story.
It's also been used because there's some extraordinarily right-wing apocalyptic Christian cult are trying to take over the town now, apparently. They've been buying up. Yeah.
Okay, I didn't even know about that one.
Yeah, apparently this weird-ass Christian cult has moved into Moscow, Idaho, has been buying up loads of property, and is trying to take over the town and make it into some kind of white supremacist Christian conclave or something. I don't know. But But I've still never been there. Actually, we were talking. I was with the band. If we're going on tour in the US at the end of September, we'll probably do Denver and we'll probably do Seattle. So I think maybe we should just detour through Moscow, Idaho, and shoot a video there. Re-record the song and
For the
shoot it in
song, right?
Moscow, Idaho. Yeah, exactly. So I think it'd be really funny. Because a few years ago, a bunch of our fans from Austria decided to go on holiday in the US, and they didn't know where to go. And the only place they knew in the US was Moscow, Idaho. So they went on holiday to Moscow, Idaho, because of that song, which is just bizarre. So they went to Moscow, Idaho, and they went to the tourist office in the Chamber of Commerce and asked for what exciting things there were to do. And the girl in the tourist office was like, "Why are four Austrian guys visiting Moscow, Idaho?" And they explained it was because of this song. And she thought that was so cool that there was a song written about Moscow, Idaho, that she introduced them to the mayor. And they got a tour around by the mayor of Moscow, Idaho, because he had come from Austria because of her song. And so they had T-shirts made up. They had T-shirts made up with the map of Moscow, Idaho on the front. It was just completely bizarre. So, and
That is
apparently also,
influence right there.
apparently there are clubs in Moscow, Idaho that to this day play that song at the end of the night. Um, so someday I'm going to have to
Okay,
go there.
okay.
I'm going to have to go there and visit the mayor because
I don't think
I've
I've
put their town
actually,
on the map.
I haven't been to a club there before. Um, it's like a small college town, so they have
Hmm.
somewhat of a music scene.
Yeah, well, this is
Uh,
what I've been told, but I don't know. I've never been there. So anyway, that's my plan. I'm going to go to
well, while you're
Moscow,
in the middle of
Idaho.
nowhere.
Exactly. I'm nowhere in Moscow, Idaho.
That sounds like a fun plan.
So
Uh,
thank you, Exene Chervenko. You may be an asshole, but you gave me a hit record.
so let's go into the listening party now with the Death and Sex album. Okay, so I've got this. Um, I'm gonna talk a little bit about the history of the album, the original album, and
Mhm.
kind of what has changed with this one. So, the Death and Sex is the complete reimagining of an industrial post-punk classic. Riding high on the back of multiple successful singles and albums, in 1993, legendary post-punk band the Cassandra Complex released their Sex and Death album to wide acclaim across Europe. However, due to legal complications, this album was never released in the USA and still has never been made available there. On regaining the USA rights, band mastermind Rodney Orpheus sat down to remaster the album, but soon decided to simply re-record it from scratch using modern technology and do a worldwide release of an entirely new album featuring the original songs, Death and Sex. For the re-recording, Orpheus gathered together original guitarist Andy Booth, plus USA-based guitarist Chris Haskett of Henry Rollins' band, David Bowie, the little-known David Bowie, cellist Mira Roberts of Faith and the Muse, Black Tape for a Blue Girl, and keyboardist Brent Heinz.
Heinze.
I was like, there's an either. Heinze, right. Okay. Death and Sex features the Cassandra Complex's classic signature sounds of powerful drum machines, hammering synth bass lines, and huge distorted guitars. But this album takes it to a new level of sonic power, completely reinventing the band's sound for the 21st century. Orpheus's unique voice sounds better than ever, and the band members create music of stunning energy and virtuosity. From the hard-driving cyberpunk of Mouth of Heaven and stunning energy and Kneel to the Boss, to the warped dance floor of Voices or Give Me What I Need, and the oozing sexuality of Satisfy Me and Realm of the Senseless. This is not just a retread of a 30-year-old album, it's a totally new record with a totally new level of emotional intensity. The band's previous album, The Plague, was widely acclaimed and spent 8 weeks in the German alternative chart. Oh, golf clap. Early indications are that this album will achieve even greater levels of critical and fan acclaim. The Reflections of Darkness website already calls it an awesome and surprising new sound. And I believe you have some other reviews coming out soon, including a post from me but more on that later.
All right.
The album will be supported by a world tour, like we've been talking about, across at least 16 countries throughout this year. All right. Okay, so let's get into it. So the first track here, unless you want to do any sort of like intro before we go into listening, we're basically just going to break it down by track. So we're going to talk about each track. And if you don't have anything you really want to say about a track, we can skip it, go into the next song.
When have I never had something to say about something?
Okay. So
I'm happy to talk through the tracks, yeah.
I am going to pull up this first video. We have some of the footage is from, I believe it was the December 93 tour that I was in support of this original release, Sex and Death. So the 1993 version, Sex and Death in that order. Now we have Death and Sex, which admittedly I think most people would prefer the first order. But
well, I had to differentiate it somehow.
I understand. I was just.
It seemed like the obvious solution to calling so that it would have a new name.
It's different,
but it
kind
wasn't
of the same.
A new name.
Right.
So
right. It's related.
It's related, yes.
Highly related. Okay. So we're gonna listen to this first track, which is "Mouth of Heaven."
I'm driving in my car with Jesus Christ beside me, trapped in a mirror, he's reaching for me. Run your fingers through my mind and fill it with love. Run your fingers through my mind and kill it with love. I touch down and I come into the mouth of heaven. She kisses me and I come into the mouth of heaven. I feel the wings of destiny beat above my head. Death is my companion, dressed in black and red, reaching down between my legs, she brings me to the light. I'm coming into the darkest night. I touch that and I come into the mouth of heaven. She kisses me and I come into the mouth of heaven. To the mouth of heaven. She kisses me and I come into the mouth of heaven. Drive my car, let me come into the mouth of heaven. Open the gates, let me come into the mouth of heaven.
All right, so that was the first track, Mouth of Heaven, and that was released as a single initially, right?
No, it was not, but we're
Oh.
thinking we might release it as a single this time. We're not sure yet. No, it wasn't. The single the first time around was Give Me What I Need, which will probably be the single this time around as well. We'll come to that later.
The first single?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, we can talk about that track when it comes up. But do you have any like backstory or any insight into the track, the production, just anything you want to say about it, really?
Well, the song it harkens back to a couple of things I mentioned earlier. In that it's a multi-layered song. It's about several things at once, and it's also another reference to J.G. Ballard. I was talking about J.G. Ballard's novel Crash earlier, which is about sexuality, the sexuality of car crashes, and so Mouth of Heaven is about having. On one level, it's about having a blowjob while you're driving. Obviously, it's pretty obvious. But on another level, it's about it's very mystical in the sense that it's about the moment of transcendence of and entering the void, if you like. So it's a comment. That's why it's on an album called Death and Sex, because that's why it's the opening track in this case, because it's literally about both those things. It's about the death as in physical death, but also the death of consciousness, the obliteration of the self in the all, and so on. So it's got both those references very much in it. So I wanted to write a song that was very sexy, but also very spiritual, and that's basically what came out through my warped consciousness.
And we have the next track, Voices. Do you just want to go into that a little bit beforehand?
Okay, well, Voices is it came about from, I was thinking a lot about schizophrenics and about a lot of serial killers and so on who hear voices. You know, like wasn't it Ted Bundy who got it was Robert Ramirez who heard voices coming from his neighbor's dog and told him to kill things. And many serial killers talk about how God told them to go out and kill prostitutes. Or like
that was the Son of Sam, right?
That was Son of Sam, yeah. Robert
he
Ramirez.
Was definitely in with the voices for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Well, a lot of serial killers claim that God tells them what to do, though a lot of them just become Christians after they get caught because it's an easy way to try and get off. They try and blame it on somebody else. But I was interested in schizophrenia and the fact that people hear voices that tell them what to do. And I was interested also in martyrdom and suicide bombers as well, and the fact that they martyr themselves to God. And so Voices is kind of like, it's got that kind of Middle Eastern feel to it, and it's kind of about that idea of hearing a voice telling you to go out and sacrifice yourself or whatever. So again, there's an element of religiosity in there, but in a very warped way. But yeah, so that's Voices.
All right, so we're going to hear that track now.
Tell me everything I'm missing. Tell me
can hear voices. When you call, I'll always listen. Tell me everything I'm missing. Tell me anything you will. Tell me who I have to kill. When you call, I'll always listen. Tell me everything I'm missing. Tell me anything you will. Tell me who I have to kill. When you call, I'll always listen. Tell me everything I'm missing. Tell me anything you will. Tell me who I have to kill. When you call, I'll always listen. Tell me everything I'm missing. Tell me anything you will. Tell me who I have to kill. 'Cause I can hear voices. 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 'Cause I can hear voices.
All right, so that was the track Voices, which we just heard about a little bit from Rodney. And we are going to go into the next album, which is called Kneel to the Boss. So what's this track about?
Oppression of the working classes. God damn it. Yeah, it's political in a sense, but also, like I said, it's like kind of like a dual thing, because I was getting interested in BDSM and kink and power relationships and sexuality, and I wanted to write something about that. But being me, I had to make it political as well. So it's a combination of, on one level, it's about power dynamics in a sexual relationship, and another level, it's about workers' oppression and so on.
Yeah, you mentioned that you like to have your songs have multiple meanings. So they kind of have like their own little double entendre thing going on.
Right, and musically, it's very, very aggressive, because I wanted to write something very aggressive and very, like revolt of the working class style. But it's also very aggressive in the sense of, I wanted to have a very refer to a very aggressive form of sexuality, but consensual, and that level of consent was something that was interesting to me, because, even though workers are oppressed by the capitalist, bosses, we still consent to do it. Maybe reluctantly, but
yeah,
and I was
perhaps not given a lot of choice, but
exactly. So I was interested in it, and in the background, it's not obvious in the song, but in the background of my head while I was writing it, I was interested in the concept of consent and what is consent and what is oppression and what is not, and yeah, so that formed the questioning in my brain that ended up as this song.
All right. All right, so we're going to watch the video for this next, which again, this footage is pulled from live footage, which I believe was edited later. It looks pretty processed and released on VHS. That's how it was recorded.
No, that's actually what happened live. How we did it was, we had a huge video screen behind us running the backing videos, and then we had a cameraman on the stage with a Steadicam, who was filming the show live, and then live projecting that back and mixing it in with the backing video. So what you're seeing was what was actually running live on the video screen behind us while we were playing. And that's why there's all the weird effects and slow-mo and stuff, because we had a live video mixer who was doing all those effects, video effects live.
Okay, so it's just properly like vintage processing, and that's why it looks like that.
It's
just like
yeah, it's all
live
analog
edits,
processing. It's
basically.
all analog processing, live edits, and then via VHS. So you'll see the VHS noise bars and stuff, and glorious 480p resolution.
All right, so we're gonna listen to Neil and the Boss, or Neil to the Boss. Sorry.
swirling round us, they lie beneath our feet. Space is where we're going, the earth is obsolete. We are here to go from the ashes of defeat. We are here to go and we will be complete. Give me what I need. 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 Getting nearer the high frontier. Feel it getting nearer year by year. Feel it getting nearer the high frontier. Feel it getting nearer year by year. Feel it getting nearer the high frontier. Feel it getting nearer year by year. Feel it getting nearer the high frontier. Feel it getting nearer year by year.
So that was the video for Give Me What I Need, which was released as a single. And wasn't that also on like a German news program or something?
That actually was used as the theme tune for the German news program every day on the main on ARD, which is like the German equivalent of NBC or so yeah, and that was the theme music for about 2-3 years. And so I made more money from that one song than I made from all the sales of the record, because I was getting paid
not bad.
royalties every single day from the TV show. It was on 3 times a day, in fact, every day. Yeah, it was great. Every 6 months, I get a check in the mail that paid my rent for the next 6 months.
Very cool.
So I'm hoping the same thing will happen again. Hopefully they'll like the new version, because the show's still running. But
really?
They'll use a different theme tune now, so maybe they'll decide to go back and use this one again. I certainly hope so.
Do you have any backstory about how that happened? Like how they started using your track?
I have absolutely no idea. Apparently we had some kind of a fan at the TV company who decided, hey, we're going to use this as the theme music, and that was it. Boom.
I guess that's all it takes sometimes.
Yep.
So Give Me What I Need. Did we talk about that one?
Not yet.
Okay, yeah. So do you have anything else you want to talk about that track?
And Give Me What I Need's about, it's another science fiction kind of song. It's about space travel, basically. That's why it goes here to go, which was a famous phrase used by the author Brian Gysin in the 60s, referencing the fact that human beings, next stage of evolution is going into space. And it's very much about, when I was a kid, I was obsessed with space travel. And the fact that we put men on the moon, and everything was, in the 60s and the 70s, it was so exciting. And so science fiction, science reality was all the best things about science fiction. And of course, it rapidly turned into dystopian hellscape instead. And now we know that it's almost impossible for human beings to live out of the Earth, because cosmic rays will violently mutate you, and your bones get brittle, and like they sent NASA did a famous experiment where they had two astronauts who were identical twins, and they sent one up to stay in the space station and one stayed on Earth. And the one who went to the space station is now 6 inches smaller than his brother and crippled with horrific diseases. So yeah, it's
okay. Yeah, we're gonna pass.
We're not going to space anytime soon.
Here to Go, also a great Cabaret Voltaire track.
Yeah,
it started playing up here. As you said that.
Exactly. Also referencing Brian Gysin. And funny enough, I met Brian Gysin and William Burroughs when I was with Cabaret Voltaire and Genesis P-Orridge from Gristle. It was the first ever Secchi TV concert. Brian and William Burroughs were the support, and Cabaret Voltaire played as well. And so I went with the Cabs to see it, and we all hung out afterwards. So it was after the show. It was Genesis and Peter Christopherson, later of Coil, and it was Mal and Rick from Cabaret Voltaire, and a couple of people from Research Magazine, and me, and David Tibet and Sue Catwoman from the Sex Pistols. We're all hanging out together. If someone had tossed a grenade in that room, it would have been the end of industrial subculture as we know it.
Oh no.
So yeah, that was a fun day.
All the legends in one place.
Yeah, I don't know what I was doing there, but for some reason I managed to gate crash that party as well.
Okay, so the next track, Come Out. Do you want to talk about that one before we play it?
Yeah, Come Out was interesting. I mean, the title is actually a reference to the movie Cape Fear, the remake with Robert De Niro, because there's a bit where he goes, come out, wherever you are," and it's a children's hide and seek game, and I was interested in the way that things that can be innocent while you're a child can become weirdly sexual or warped as you get older, and I was. There was a girlfriend of mine said to me once, like, I spent my whole life as a child trying not to get spanked, and now I spend my whole life as an adult trying to get spanked. And I thought that was really interesting. And so Come Out's kind of like that intersection of childish fantasy and adult fantasy.
Okay, so let's listen to this one now. And there is no video for the next two tracks, and then for the last track, we do have another video, just so you know. You're going to see our faces for the next few minutes.
matter where you are, I will find you. Your breath and your skin and your hair. No matter where you are, I will find you. I'm coming right there. Come out, baby. Come out tonight. Come out, baby. Come out.
Okay, so we just heard the track Come Out there, and Rodney already talked a little bit about it. Coming up next, we have the track Satisfy Me. Now, was this one of the original singles?
Nope, it wasn't a single either. There's only one single. Give Me
Only
What
one
I Need was the
single.
only, was
Okay.
the only single off this album.
All right. Okay.
Though that
but
when we were trying to decide what single to do from this album, we had very long discussion because all the songs were so strong we couldn't figure out which one would make the best single. So we're still not sure, but we wanted to make a record where all the songs were really, really strong and had no filler in it.
is there a reason why there was only one single released for the first album?
Yeah, because we didn't think any of the other songs sounded like a single on the first time around. It's very different than it is now this time around, I think.
So yeah,
Each one of them is much
do you want to talk
stronger.
a little bit about like why you're saying it's a lot different and stronger? Just like what are the main differences between this first?
Well, it's a completely
recording
different
and this
band
one?
for a start. I'm the only person who's common to both records. On the original album, it was myself and Jürgen Janssen, who now plays keyboards with a band called Project Pitchfork, well, I think a lot of people know. Jürgen was started in the Cassandra Complex, and he played with the Cassandra Complex on, I think, 3 albums, and very much part of the band. And then he joined Project Pitchfork, and he's basically been doing the music with Project Pitchfork since then, since just after making this album. And he also was the live sound engineer for the Sisters of Mercy for many years.
Who you've also played with.
I've toured with the
little bit,
Sisters of Mercy. Yep, I toured with the Sisters of Mercy for several years. Yeah, I handled the drum machine and all the machines. So, Sisters of Mercy fans will know the drum machine is called Dr. Avalanche, and the person who looks after Dr. Avalanche is called the nurse. So I was Dr. Avalanche's nurse for a long time. And if you've seen the Top of the Pops appearance for the Under the Gun single with Terry Nunn, I'm playing keyboards on Under the Gun on that Top of the Pop show.
Yeah, and you mentioned that there was a possible Doctor Who tie-in with that.
Yes, because we did Top of the Pops, which is a BBC show, and Andrew wanted like a really big something that looked really big and impressive, and so we got the BBC to go to the Doctor Who set next door, and they trundled in a giant computer system from the TARDIS, and that was my keyboard setup, and it had all these amazing flashing lights and buttons and switches, and they were all connected to each other. So if I flicked a switch, it would make certain lights flicker and move, and if I flicked another one different. So they were all connected. Didn't actually do anything, but it looked fucking fantastic.
So you were basically Doctor Who.
I was, yeah, I was Well, there's a time because the Doctor and Dr. Avalanche, I guess. But
Right,
yeah.
right.
But yeah, so there was that's my day with this on TV with the Sisters of Mercy and the Doctor Who set. So it's like it was everyone's teen on Top of the Pops, which is the biggest music show in the world ever. So it
Yeah,
was
yeah, that's
which I
huge.
watched when I was a little kid. And so that was like that was all my childhood dreams come true. Top of the Pops and Doctor Who at the same time. It was yeah,
Yeah,
very satisfying day.
I mean, I enjoy the YouTube uploads of that show, so I can live vicariously.
Yeah. It was really interesting because I've been rehearsing all day with Terry and the band, and it was like it was just felt like another day. You know, we're in, I've done a lot of TV shows and things. We're like, yeah, it's you just do the job, and it wasn't until we were standing on the stage and the show started and the theme music dan da da dan da da dan, the top of the top theme music that I knew from when I was like 3 years old, and I'm like, I looked around and I looked at Adam who was playing guitar and we both went, holy shit, we're on Top of the Pops. And it only really hit when the theme music started running. We're like, holy God, I'm on Top of the Pops. And it was like, oh, this is unbelievable. So yeah, it was a good day.
Nice, nice. Okay, so this next track, Satisfy Me, was
Mhm.
not an actual single. I think it has a really catchy like guitar hook though. And it, I, are you wanting to announce which tracks you're going to release as singles this time or just
Well, I
wait
think we're
until
going
that
to do Give Me
happens?
What I Need as the first single,
Mhm.
especially because a lot of people in Germany know the original because it was the TV news theme tune. So it's a very recognizable that dang dicka dang at the beginning of Give Me What I Need, that guitars thing is very recognizable to anyone who grew up in Germany in the last 20 years. They'll know it because they heard it on TV every day. So it's kind of a way of saying, hey, look, it's actually us. We did that song, because a lot of people have heard it but didn't know who did it. I think we might do Mouth of Heaven as a second single. A lot of people seem to really like that. It's got some, but I don't know. I mean, you tell me, you're the DJ. Um,
I think those are solid choices,
uh,
definitely.
yeah. Satisfy Me.
Although I think
Oh,
there are a couple of tracks that also have single potential as well.
yeah. I honestly don't know. Whatever people want to dance to, we'll release it. So,
Hmm.
um, but it's basically down to what DJs want to play because we want them to play our records. So
The DJs have all the power. You heard
they
it here
do.
first.
The Deutsche Alternativen charts, the German alternative charts, are voted on by DJs as well, and influencers, and they have a big pool of a lot of alternative DJs and clubs, and so yeah, so to get in the charts, it's obviously important for the DJs to like it because they're the ones who make the choices, which is great. I mean, I'm really happy that they do. So. And like, the last album went to #1 on the DAC, so we're hoping this one's going to go #1 as well. So get your local DJ to play it if you like it, everybody. Please tell them to play it and vote us in the chart. It's important. So Satisfy Me is one of this, I guess, is a very simple song in the sense compared to the others. I mean, it's basically just a song it's just about sex. It's basically.
I was thinking simple in terms of like there's a lot of repetition, that phrase is
Hmm.
uttered a lot throughout, and you've got that like little twangy guitar thing. Um,
Yeah, I mean, I really like the guitars on the new version. I mean, there's a lot more guitar on the new version than was on the original. And we've got, I mean, I should big shout out to the band as well, because I don't want anyone to think that this band isn't just me. We have, Andy has been playing since the beginning, like I said before, and Andy's an amazing guitar player who writes some great pieces. Um, and so both Andy and Chris play on this one. Chris Haskett, he actually grew up with us effectively. He was a friend of ours when we first started the band, and he played in the band. He's American. He's from DC, but he studied in Leeds, and he was at Leeds University along with Andy and Paul, and so we all knew each other. Um, and he played with a band called Surf and Dave back then, like a surf punk band. That was how he started, and we loved Chris, and we used to hang out with him all the time. And then he joined, he got to play with Henry Rollins, and he was the main guitar player with Henry Rollins for many, 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 many years. And then he did some work with David Bowie, which is like, hey, serious, he's a serious guitar player. And he played live with us when we did the Wetware tour in 2000 and with Frontier for Two in America. And then we did another tour in 2001 of Wetware in Europe, and Chris played live with us then. But he hasn't played in any of the records before. So when this record, I was like, I really, really want to get Chris to play on this one. So I sent him all the songs, and he just came up with some amazing guitar pieces. So we have two really, really great guitar players on the record, which I'm really happy about.
Nice. Okay, so let's listen to this track, Satisfy Me, and this is another one with just the audio, and then we'll watch the video for the last track on the album after this.
Give me hate, give me pain, give me all that's in my brain. Give me life, give me death, make me come with every breath. I need the love that makes me full, I need the love that makes me cruel. And when all is said and done, I need the love that makes me come. Satisfy me, satisfy me, satisfy me. Satisfy, touch me, hold me, feel me, load me up and let me fly. Touch me, hold me, need me, watch me die. Satisfy me, satisfy me. Satisfy me, satisfy, satisfy me, satisfy me, satisfy me, satisfy. Give me hate, give me pain, give me all that's in my brain. Give me life, give me death, make me come with every breath. I need the love that makes me free, I need the love that makes me cruel. And when all is said and done, I need the love that makes me come. Satisfy me, satisfy me, satisfy me, satisfy, satisfy me, satisfy me, satisfy me, satisfy. Crucify me, deify me, gratify me, magnify me, modify me, mortify me, rectify me, purify me, sanctify me, simplify me, unify me, satisfy me,
Okay, so that was the track Satisfy Me. I actually played that song, the original version of it, in a DJ set a couple weeks ago. Oh, that was like last week, actually. But that is on my Valentine's Day set. For those of you who are my listeners out there, you can catch it in context with other music in that set. I played it pretty early on. I think it's like 10, 15 minutes into the track. But anyway, okay, so we just have one song left tonight, and it is called Realm of the Senseless. I mean, okay, so it's hard for me to pick favorites on the album because I think all the tracks are great in their own unique way, you know. But Realm of the Senseless is definitely one of my favorites if I had to select them.
If I had to select a favorite, this would be my favorite too. And I know Andy said the same thing. Really, really, really happy. I mean, it's always been a great song, but I think this version of it is really exceptionally good. I'm so happy with it. And in Realm of the Senses, it came about because I was reading about psychopaths and sociopaths and their inability to have empathy, but inability to feel what other people feel, which is one of the possible motivations for why they go to such extremes to try and comprehend other people's feelings. And that's something, obviously, I mean, feeling other people's feelings and being empathic is something that I find really wonderful and exciting. And that's what drives me as a musician. I want to be able to, as I mentioned earlier, to me, the greatest achievement is when what I'm feeling inside is other people can feel it too. That I look into the audience and I see someone looking at me and they're crying because they feel the emotional intensity that I felt when I wrote it and when I'm singing it. And that's an incredible thing. So I want to write a song about that search for connection and that search for a fully sensory connection with other people. And that's what Realm of the Senses is really about. It's about that search of that moment when you can connect completely with somebody else and feel fully their whole emotional sensorium.
Yeah, that sort of like artistic empathy that you experience with your listeners is definitely unique. And I mean, you see that across like all different types of art, I guess. People use it as a way to express themselves, but also to connect with others through their own expressions. So
right. I mean, like, do you know Picasso's painting Guernica?
Yeah, I saw a bunch of Picasso when I was in Los Angeles, like last year. But
right. Yeah, so when I first saw Guernica, that I wept, I cried because it's a Cubist version of the bombing of Guernica, and it's about a great tragedy and a massive loss of life, and I just cried when I saw it because that whole everything about that moment and about that horrific event came across on the canvas, and so that's the kind of emotional interaction that I find really interesting about any kind of art, but especially about great music. So, and I hope this is one of them.
We've really hyped this one up. Okay, so the closing track here, Realm of the Senseless.
Hang still in the air. No God hears my prayer, and all I can see is the inside of me. All I can do is play solitaire. Let got too much pride. Let me inside. Let me inside. You know I'll provide. Let me inside. I wanna know how you feel. I wanna know if it's real. I'm losing my senses. I am losing control. I'm losing my senses. I can't take anymore. I'm losing control. I'm losing control. I'm losing control. I'm losing control. A dead twin space hangs in this place, searching for grace. Hangs and swings on eagle's wings. Blood drips on my head as I fall to the bed and sleep where you bled.
Okay, so that was the final track of this album, Death and Sex, which will be released on March 8th on Cop International. And you can pick it up on Bandcamp, the digital version, as well as on CD. And it will be available to stream everywhere. But I mean, we all know you should buy actual music from the artists, and that is the best way to support. Wink, 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 wink.
And I think we'll take pre-orders on March 1st because that's Bandcamp Friday.
Yeah, Bandcamp Friday.
So if you really want to support
thankfully.
the artist, if you really support us, get the pre-order on March 1st, and then you will get it on the 8th when it comes out.
Yeah, I'm amazed at what a difference that the cut that they forgo on that day makes, really. But
It helps a lot.
yeah, for sure. The percentages add up, folks. All right. So that will be available on CD, and they will also be available physically at your live shows, right? While supplies last.
Yeah, I mean, we're actually pressing quite a few because we talked to our German distributor and they're very keen on it, so they're taking them. So it will also be available to order on Amazon and record stores as well. So the physical CD will be get a full distribution. But obviously, if you're coming to the shows, buy to the shows, because then we make even more money. And my God, I really need your money. Please, God, help me out.
Oh, you heard from the artist himself. All right. straight from the mouth. All right. Okay. So do you want to tell us anything about your current assembly, the crew that you are touring with, that you're currently playing with?
Yeah, I should mention on the album you mentioned earlier, I mentioned that we have Andy and Chris playing guitar on the Death and Sex album. Also we have Mira Roberts, and Mira played with us before, again on the Wetware tour in 2001. She lives here in Los Angeles, and she's a cellist and a keyboard player, and she played with Faith and the Muse, if people know that band, and Black Tape for a Blue Girl, really interesting band. And she plays with a robot called Mercury, but she did cello on this record, and it's really nice. So there's a lot of really nice string stuff in the background as Mira playing. And then we have a brand new guy playing with us, Brent Heinze, who's from Palm Springs, and he plays with a band called Probe 7, and he plays also in Darling Candy with Frankie from Thrill Kill Cult. But he's playing keyboards as well on the new album, some of the tracks. And he's going to be playing live with us as well in Europe, which should be really cool. And then, yeah, for the tour, it's the original lineup. It's me, Paul, and Andy, plus Brent on additional keyboards. And Volker Zacharias from Girls Under Glass, who played with us on the Plague and on Wetware, and played on the original Sex and Death. He's going to be playing some shows with us in Germany as well. So yeah, it's still a flexible lineup, but it's good and good, great musicians. I'm really happy to play with them.
So it sounds like it's varying a little bit depending on where you're touring and which leg of the tour.
Yeah, I mean, every show is going to be different on the tour, I think. So if people come to see us more than once, they'll still get a really interesting show. It'll be probably different songs and different members every night. But hopefully all will be. And we should have our videos running as well and everything else. So we try and put on a really good show.
Sorry, you're froze for a second there.
Oh, sorry.
All will be what?
I think all will be very different every night, because we'll have a different lineups and different songs, but we'll have our full video beamer with us as well for the shows. And so hopefully it'll be a really interesting experience. We always like to put on a really good live show. It's not just a couple of guys standing there playing the songs and looking bored. We really love to play live and connect with people.
Nice. Okay. I have one last request for you. Which of your back catalog tracks would you like to listen to right now? As outro music. You get to pick. I'll put on whichever one you want.
Woman is Happy Customer.
All right. Solid choice.
Yeah.
All right. Well, please do check out the new album, Death and Sex, from the Cassandra Complex. And that will be released on March 8th, along with the Plague remastered version, which is the album that was released a few years ago, recorded during the pandemic. Those will both be available on CD. Will that be available on Bandcamp Friday as well?
Absolutely, yes. And anyone who bought the original copy on Bandcamp will get a free copy of the remaster. They don't have to buy it twice.
And on the COP International Bandcamp site? Is that where it'll be? Okay.
On ours and on the Bandcamp, on the COP International site.
On yours too. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And please do check them out on tour, playing in many countries all over the world, really, the next several months. And you can catch
so tired.
The full tour information will be on your website.
It's on the website.
Right,
It's
which
also on
is conveniently
Cass-
underneath my video screen
Mhm.
here. You can see the
right.
URL.
Yeah, and it's on Bands in Town and everywhere else as well. So
All the places
Spotify, you name it.
where you might
And
find tour
our
dates.
Facebook page, of course.
Right. That's a good place to RSVP to, so we can spread the word, help support the bands on tour.
Yep.
All right. Well, thanks very much for joining us here, Rodney, and thanks to everyone out there watching. It's been an esteemed honor to interview you, and I hope that these releases go swimmingly, and your tour is amazing too.
Thank you.
And with that,
thank you all. Thanks everyone for watching. I appreciate it.
I'm going to put on the artist's choice of 1 millionth happy customer.